This is crazy. Okay, I can't believe that, really. So we're going to be looking at these new ASL maps. Again, we don't have the date yet for ASL Season 1, but obviously it's going to be pretty soon here. And, of course, the ASL maps oftentimes influence the ladder maps that we have from season to season whenever Blizzard actually decides to release those. So this is exciting. You know, this is actually what makes RTS, in my opinion, so much better than other games, is that we actually have everything get changed up over and over. It allows us to understand the game in ways that we wouldn't otherwise have. You know, you play Dota, you play League of Legends. It's basically been the same map. You know, they change the champions or the heroes, but, you know, here we get to really try to understand how the races work with all these different parameters on there. Obviously, some maps are better than others. We're going to be looking at these. I did take a quick peek before we went live on the stream here, so I've looked over some of these a little bit here. So we've got Dark Origin. This is a modification of a map called Heartbreak Ridge. You guys might have been familiar with it. Neo Sylphid 3.0, which I believe we were... ladder is 2.0. Is that correct, chat? I'm not sure. 76 0.93. This map I'm not familiar with. Nemesis, Retro, and Vermeer. Now, this was a map that had been played on, a version of this map, for a while now. I think this is one of the better one-on-one maps that we have here. I think this is a welcome addition back into this. By the way, it does seem like a lot of these maps that I recognize in this so far have actually made for very good games. Of course, you always have to have, in my opinion, at least one one-on-one map. I wasn't crazy for Butter. I thought Butter made for some good games, for sure. But, you know, this map has always been an interesting one. You've got the bridges here that, you know, allow for some interesting contain techniques, but at the same time, there are paths around this, not just one, but two. So, you know, there's always opportunities, basically, to try to break out and maneuver around them on that. It's important to note, too, there's two ramps over here. You can go in and out of your base. There is a block over here. I've always welcomed this idea for some opportunities for some kind of crazy cheese. We'll see if we end up with workers getting glitched over here or anything like that. But this is a very, very good map, in my opinion. I think a good addition. It is a little bit tight, to be honest. There's not a lot of bases on here, which is not bad, by the way. It just makes for, I think, a kind of an interesting game where conclusions can be forced pretty early on. Author in the chat says, fun as a spectator, but seemed pretty hard to play. I agree. I think this is a tough map for a new player to play. I think some of the maps that are a little bit more straightforward for beginners is stuff like Fighting Spirit or Circuit Breakers, especially Fighting Spirit, even though I have my own personal frustrations with that map. Maps like this require you to really kind of know a lot of different angles to approach the game. Obviously, there's major cheese factors always in any one-on-one map. The fact that you can get all sorts of types of rushes, even without these little features we have here at the bottom or the top, can make it interesting. But I do think macro games get pretty technical here. So definitely a thumbs up for that that map, excuse me. This new version of Heartbreak Ridge, which is Shindanjiang's Ridge over here. I always had a lot of fun playing on this map. This was one of the last maps I got to enjoy before I had to stop playing StarCraft 1 entirely because StarCraft 2 was just around the corner, so I had to, like, walk away and basically fully focus my career on that. But this map also, similar to the map that we looked at earlier, what is that map called? Dark Origin? Yeah. A lot of the same ideas here. Opportunities here with the little mineral patch we've got. You guys can see clearly, or maybe not. You guys can get close to your monitors. The little mineral patch you can mine out here. I actually used to mess with a build where, versus Terran, I would make cannons up here and push in. Actually, it was better over here in this spot on the right because you could push towards their gas. But this has been a pretty fun map. Contains can be pretty brutal. Two base pushes from Terran, as example, can be pretty brutal for the Protoss here. Obviously, a lot of my input here is going to be coming from a Protoss perspective, right? But again, this is a fun map. You've got expansions in very different locations. Obviously, they ring all around the sides of the map, specifically at the top and the bottom. So a lot of times you end up with one side, like let's say the player that spawns at the right, growing up towards the upper left. And other times, and at the same time, the other player growing down through the bottom towards the right. But I like this map. I'm glad to see that they're bringing this back in. It did seem like for a while with ASL, we had the most classic standard maps, and then we had these completely insane maps. Now, again, I haven't looked at 76 yet, but look, this is a fun map. I think it's also a tough map for beginners. But, you know, whenever we have these maps introduced in ASL, people get exposure to how they're played and the strategies on them. You know, a lot of times that makes it a little bit easier for people to kind of test the waters out on it. Sylphid 3, and I believe we were on Sylphid 2. I could be wrong. This is an off-the-cuff recording, by the way, guys. I just learned about the new maps being announced. Does seem to be a lot of economic changes on here. It looks like they did some modifications over here to 9 o'clock. By the way, I'm glad that they're still tinkering with this map and working things out on it. I think this has proven to be one of the best maps in all of StarCraft. I know there were some issues early on with these natural locations, and originally there were these high ground areas over here that mutas could strike your, like SCVs as an example. They've fixed that and opened it up so there's more vision. And I think the way the expansions are laid out here, you've got a kind of safe, tucked-away mineral base. A base pretty far out in the middle, which can be handy if you're going to try to push out and be aggressive, but it's not as mineral or gas-rich. Honestly, I hope we continue to see Sylphid get adjusted and modified all the way up into 4.0 and beyond here, as I just think this is made for some really interesting games. And it allows for a lot of different play styles. One very generic thing about this map, but it's also important to have maps like this, is this is a map where you don't have a ramp up into your main. You instead start out on the low ground. This affects matchups pretty tremendously, especially matchups like PvP, since, you know, you don't have the security to always just go one gateway into tech. Dragoons with range are a lot stronger. So a lot of ideas like that. A lot of times historically, maps that didn't have a ramp that you'd have to go up into in the base had a whole bunch of other insane features, where this one seems to be very, very oriented towards a lot of different good normal games. So, you know, I don't know. This is definitely one of the best maps ever made for sure. Vermeer, again, massive map. I really like this map quite a bit. Vermeer, look, another massive map, big 4-player map. It looks like this ASL should allow for a lot of very good standard play to be exhibited. I have literally not looked at 76 yet, Chad. We're going to save that for last, but people have clearly felt pretty strongly about it. But look, Vermeer is good. I don't think anybody had any major complaints on it. It does make for some pretty insane late games. PvZ, PvT late game, TvZ, completely bonkers. TvT on this map can be pretty wild, especially with the high ground areas over here. But I think it's a very welcome map. Nemesis, you know, again, this is another map we've seen before. I do feel like we haven't quite seen everything yet on this map. I do feel like maps like this, you know, offering these areas down here and the ability to kind of drop there or isolate workers there, take island maps. We don't know if it's balanced yet, but, you know, I think anytime in a competitive tournament, we have to have a map that features bases like this where, you know, you can turn it into an island location, or you can open it up by ground by destroying the assimilators or building on top of them. Oh, this is a crazy looking map. All right. Wow, they really did that. Okay. They really put the number 76 in the middle of the map. So it looks like, yeah, not an island map. You've got ramps that go down into your natural, although you do have an island location with 2 gases, actually. The minerals are hallucinated. After 56 seconds of in-game time, the hallucinated minerals disappear. I didn't even know you could do that in Brood War. So you can use the egg to push a worker through, but only at the start. But after that, after it's gone, you can't get through this, and it's actually officially an island. You have access to an island, but you need to send a worker there within essentially the first minute of gameplay. Okay. Whoa, that is a word I wouldn't be able to figure this map out at all, chat. I know this looks like a giant mineral. Maybe it's supposed to be a giant mineral. Can't mine this, but because if you're in between a mineral and an egg, it could force a worker through. Oh, very interesting. All right, now let's go back up to the top. So that would probably play a bigger role in a lot of macro games, but I mean, it would seem like everybody would have to send a worker back there right away. Keep in mind, you could easily, let's say, make a barracks or a factory, float that in over here as well. I see that there's the mineral and I guess the egg mineral setup with the big mineral design over here in the middle. I don't know if that is the same rule is true as well for these middle bases, but there's a lot of islands is what it looks like to me. A lot of islands and really nowhere to expand comfortably to your third base unless you sent a worker there right away or you get a drop ship or something like that. It does seem like if you could punish their island base early on, that's going to be an issue. By the way, I actually kind of like this map now that I'm looking at it. I think it's going to make for some weird games. We're probably going to find out some difficulties for certain matchups here. But this is kind of a different type of crazy that we haven't really seen before. I think we got to keep toying with island maps, to be honest. Sparkle was a disaster. You know, let's see where this goes and what we can do. Looking at this as a Protoss player, I am very interested in quick carrier builds versus Terran. It does seem to incentivize certain races to do something pretty drastic early on. Dragoon doesn't fit in the ramp. Is that true? Or the ramp in the main? So okay, hold on, chat. Now we're getting somewhere. So you're saying the ramp here, here, here. Is this actually one of those really like 815? Is it one of those ramps? This is crazy. Okay, I can't believe that. Really? All right, so that's going to make it much more complicated because that means now this base down here, which by the way, mineral only, can't be defended with Dragoons. Oh, this is going to be very interesting. So most games are probably going to involve fast expanding back here and trying to get tech out. This is interesting. This is kind of hurting my brain. But the good news is it's an ASL map, so we don't have to figure it out. The pros will do that for us, and then we're going to get some kind of a meta here, which is a welcome thing. Well, guys, thank you for watching. For those of you that caught this segment on YouTube, I hope you subscribe to the YouTube or check me out on Twitch. We're also selling great merch at tastelessthreads.com. This is a Doom-inspired design here that you can get, but there's like almost 50 other designs that I'm very proud of, so I hope you check that out. And I'll see you in a future video. Bye-bye.